Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Ecclesiastical Law Society bite-sized conversation. And this evening, I'm talking to the Worshipful Ruth Arlow, and Ruth is a Diocesan Chancellor. We'll find out in just a minute what that means. Ruth is Chancellor of Salisbury, and is also Deputy Chancellor of London. And we're going to talk for about 15 minutes about Diocesan Chancellors, and then we will stop the recording, and those of us who are here can have a bit of conversation and question. So Ruth, wonderful to have you with us. And can we start with the basic question, what is a Diocesan Chancellor?
Thank you for having me, Russell. It's delightful to be here. A diocesan chancellor is, in essence, the judge of the bishop's court for the diocese. So our jurisdiction extends principally to churches and churchyards within the diocese, not the cathedral, but all other churches. Not to be confused with the canon chancellor of the cathedral. I have been confused for a canon chancellor of a cathedral once, but I'm very glad to say that we managed to sort that difficulty out. Yes, our role is principally making decisions in relation to buildings and churchyards in the diocese. We exercise the bishop's jurisdiction there.
Fantastic. So how do you get appointed as a chancellor, as a judge of this court?
Well, there are qualification requirements. You need to be qualified for 7 years. They're basically the same qualification requirements to be appointed as, a circuit judge in the county court. You need to have a 7-year practicing certificate under your belt. You are appointed by the bishop, but are absolutely independent of him or her. So you're not, they don't have any say in the decisions that you make. And you are effectively sworn in front of the bishop, oaths of judicial oath of independence and an oath of allegiance as well. So that's good. If
what's the term of office?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I was going to say deputy chancellors are appointed slightly differently in that that's an appointment of the chancellor rather than an appointment of the bishop. But the bishop needs to approve their appointment. Sorry, you were asking me about terms of office.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, essentially you're appointed to the age of 70 unless you very seriously misbehave, which very few of us do. We're generally very well behaved and we're unlikely to be kicked out before our 70 years has been reached. That term of appointment can be extended by the bishop for a period of 12 months at a time. I can't remember how many years you can extend that to. It's only a couple, but there is some discretion to extend it a little bit in order to give everybody time to find a replacement.
Sure, I see. And you mentioned Deputy Chancellor just now, Ruth. What are the Deputy Chancellors? Because as I said at the beginning, you're Chancellor, so you're Judge of the Court, Consistory Court of Salisbury, but you're Deputy Chancellor in London. So what's your role there?
Well, the role of Deputy Chancellor is essentially the same as the role of Chancellor, but you're there to cover in emergencies. It depends very much on the approach of the individual Chancellor in each diocese, how much the deputy does. In some dioceses, the Chancellor will want to do most of it themselves. And the Deputy Chancellor will just be called in if there's a conflict of interest or the Chancellor is away or unavailable, unwell for some reason. I take the view that a Deputy Chancellorship is a bit of an apprenticeship and it's an opportunity to get trained up with a view to stepping up to a Chancellorship at the end of the day. So I try to make sure that my deputy gets enough experience for him to be able to take a chancelloring role. I've just swapped deputies in Salisbury because we've managed to do that successfully. And now I have a new deputy to sort of train up a bit. But other chancellors are very happy to just get on and do it all themselves and only trouble the deputy when there's a need.
Sure. Very interesting. Thank you. So, how about your day-to-day work as a chancellor? What does an ordinary day or an ordinary week look like?
Well, the role of Chancellor is not something that is going to occupy your full working week. So most chancellors have a role either as a judge or a barrister. I was trying to think if there are any barristers, solicitors, chancellors at the moment, and I can't think of any. It may be that someone will pop in later with a reminder of somebody that I slipped my mind. But you'll normally have an alternative practice, and then your chancelloring will fit in around that. In terms of the work you're doing, it's one of my favourite things about the role is it's just different every day. You can be presented with a hot dispute about whether or not someone can remove the pews from their church, or someone has snuck into the churchyard in the middle of the night and interred the cremated remains of someone's dog in a grave, and what do we do about it? And someone wants to reserve a grave space, but there's no room left, and is that going to be allowed? Or net zero carbon is a big thing that's taking up a lot of Chancellor's time at the moment. That's obviously a very hot topic in the Church of England. So no 2 days are the same, but it's mostly determining those sorts of applications, changes to churchyards, changes to buildings, and what the subject matter is going to be can be almost anything that you can imagine. The most recent inquiry I was dealing with this week was whether or not bug hotel. Salisbury Cathedral has a huge bug hotel that's been constructed and left in the grounds, and one of the local parish churches wanted to do the same, and did they need a faculty to do that? So you are dealing with those court applications regularly. Court hearings, well, certainly in Salisbury Diocese, are relatively rare. Probably only have, I don't know, 2 or 3 a year. They can be very costly for parishes, so I tend to only hold them if they're necessary. Although if they are necessary, we're happy to do so. So a lot of it is paperwork based, and then there will be sort of general advising, and I will go down to the diocese and train the diocesan architects or the church wardens and incumbents, that sort of thing. If the bishop's got a particular query about something, he might say, can you tell me what you think about this? The registry, the archdeacons and incumbents and private individuals often will contact the registry and say, help, what do you think about this? So that's the kind of stuff. Like I say, huge variety and great fun.
So you just, it sounds so fascinating. You mentioned just now about people contact you through the registry, of course, rather than directly. I wonder, is it worth saying, for clarity, because everyone might not have it sort of fully in their mind, what the distinction is between the Chancellor and the registrar, who are the sort of two principal legal officers of a diocese? How does the Chancellor compare to the registrar?
Well, I'm sure the registrars would be delighted to hear me say that they do most of the hard work. Our job, as I say, as Chancellor, is to be the judge, to be the determiner of applications. But it is definitely the registrars who are more at the coalface and doing the sort of day-to-day management of the registry's business. Whereas we're a little bit removed. That's why it's so important, I think, to try and get in your diocese if you possibly can, just, to do some diocesan training or something. Hopefully the training is useful, but also it's quite important to try and build a relationship, however slight, with, incumbents and church wardens and people in the diocese, so that they think to ask the question, because it's when people don't ask the questions that it goes a bit wrong.
And the variety of Chancellor's work is going to increase a little bit under the new clergy conduct measure, is that right?
It is, yes, it's exciting news. I don't know if all chancellors think it's exciting news, but we are under the new clergy conduct measure. All chancellors will be part of the pool of potential chairs for disciplinary tribunal hearings. In fact, I'm already have been appointed in that role. That's what I've been doing today. Hence the grand surroundings. I'm not usually in such grand surroundings, but all chancellors will shortly be eligible to sit as chairs of the clergy discipline tribunals.
Great and interesting. So, if there are people watching this, Ruth, I think primarily of lawyers, why might somebody decide that they'd be interested in becoming a chancellor? What might draw them to doing that?
I mean, I suppose it's very much a personal choice. As I say, the variety, I think, is very engaging, and there are very few areas of law where you get such variety of work. At a personal level, I chose a long time ago now to start doing this kind of work because I felt it was a place where I could use the legal skills that I had, honed, such as they are, as a barrister, in service of the church, which is a good thing to want to do. So, and also, ecclesiastical lawyers generally, I think I'm in a safe space to say this, we're a good bunch. We're nice people to work with. And that is true in the role of chancellor. The chancellors are generally speaking an interesting, engaging, kind, supportive bunch and good people to work with. And the same is true of the other people you'll come into contact with professionally, the registrars and the archdeacons and all of that sort of thing. So the people you work with, I think, always make a job, and I don't have any complaints in that regard.
Sure, no, that's interesting. You've reminded me I remember when I was an undergraduate, John Rees, who was the diocesan and provincial registrar, came and gave a sermon about Christianity and law. But I remember it wasn't speaking to me because I didn't study law as an undergraduate. I remember him saying at the conclusion of the sermon, encouraging people, lawyers, student lawyers, to think about specialising in ecclesiastical law, and that's the sort of chancellor registrar equivalent to vocations, isn't it? Going out and building vocations to this really important ministry that the church relies on. That as with so many other ministries of all kinds, that people bring their gifts and expertise to serve the church. So if somebody did want to do that, responding to your call, Ruth, what would you say are the steps if they're a barrister, solicitor in some area of practice? What are the steps they should take to try it out and put a toe in the water?
Yes, well, joining the ELS is a good way to start. I'm not here to to sell the society, but joining the ELS is a good place to start making contacts and meeting people. The secretary of the Ecclesiastical Judges Association, who is lovely and extremely experienced and competent man called Philip Petchy, holds a pro bono list for consistory court matters, where parishes who don't have a huge amount of money can write to Philip and say, help, I need a lawyer to represent me in consistory court hearings in a particular application. And that's a really good place to get a little bit of experience. And, if you put your name on that list and you get the call, then a little bit of experience as an advocate in the courts is a good place to start. But I would also say, make contact with your local chancellor. Probably you need to do it through the registry unless you have another means of contacting them. And just say, I'm interested. Tell me about it, because we're all slightly evangelical about it, really. It's good that we want a big pool of people. We have historically had a relatively narrow pool, and we're working really hard to widen it. And I think it's working well. So
fantastic. Well, hope there'll be people watching this who are inspired by what you've said, Ruth, and do explore. And I'm sure also there are people perhaps who aren't themselves going to become chancellors, but understand a lot more about what it is that chancellors do and who they are because of our conversation this evening. So thank you for your time. We'll bring the first half of the conversation to an end. I'll stop the recording and then we'll have time for a bit of conversation more widely.